Trust is the one mentality that most people find it hard to embody. But if we are to evolve spiritually, then none of that is possible without understanding and embodying trust itself. Why I'm mentioning this to you is because a lot of spiritual aspirants on the spiritual path lack trust and don't trust the world nor themselves. But it is the one attitude and mentality that we need to hold steadfast to if we are going to evolve spiritually, not just individually, but also collectively. Now, when you think about your own personal sadhana, right, your own spiritual path, a lot of people lack that trust. Now, we have to understand ourselves as a piece of the universe. We got to stop making a distinction between the universe and ourselves, right? So why I'm saying that is if we look out into the universe is not 1 minute sooner or 1 minute later, right? It is perfect as it is. It's in perfect harmony and perfect order. Now, we are a microcosm of that. Now, on the spiritual path, this is why we have to trust our sadhana. We're not 1 minute sooner or 1 minute later. We are perfect as we are. We need to trust our own personal sadhana. Trust your spiritual practice, and everything will be taken care of. And you will experience ultimate happiness and bliss along the path by trusting the path itself. We've got to stop questioning ourselves. Now, this is not a belief, right? Because belief is conceptual, where trust is you're just trusting the way of nature, right? You're just trusting that your life is going to unfold in a way that is going to be spiritually beneficial for you. Now, the way for spiritual aspirants to embody that is to follow your own personal sadhana, your own personal spiritual practice and path, right? Now, that may differ between each and every one of us, right? You might be a Buddhist, you might be a Hindu or a Taoist, so to speak. But that sadhana and that path and that practice all require your own personal trust. If you don't trust it, then you won't experience ultimate bliss and ultimate happiness, right? You have to understand that in that trust, you have to understand that if you follow it, if you trust your spiritual path, then everything will be taken care of. Every little thing will be taken care of. But you need to let go and trust, right? And this is one of the hardest attitudes and mentality for people to embody, because we live in such a world these days where it's so busy and people are focused on hyper productivity, they're focused on money, they're focused on material acquisition, they forgot the spiritual foundation of the world, and a lot of us have bought into the illusion that the material world is all that exists. And no, the material world is a covering of the spiritual world. It's just a superficial layer that we are experiencing of a divine spiritual realm. Call it the power of Shiva, right? This is the Shakti reality. And so the benefit of living in a human body is you can focus on your sadhana. But that requires you to trust. But to trust means you have to step into the wilderness of uncertainty, right? The world has taught you to strive for certainty in your life. And they've kind of trained you never to fall into uncertainty. But the spiritual path is all about uncertainty. The spiritual path and your own personal sadhana is imploring you to walk buck naked into the wilderness of the universe, right? And so explore your path, right? And trust your path. Now, you would not need to trust if life was certain, because if you had control of every little part of your life and there was certainty, why would you need to trust? Because you already are going to create the reality that you want. But we are all human beings, and we know that reality doesn't actually work like that. And so the universe is always nudging us towards trusting it rather than questioning it, right? And so we have to trust the universe and embrace uncertainty, embrace not having control, letting go of control so you can experience reality as it appears to you in any given moment. And you can only do that by trusting your sadhana, exploring that. And if you do that, everything will be taken care of, right? And so a lot of people will question this because they will say, well, what am I going to do for a job? What about this and what about that? And see, you're looking at it the wrong way, right? We all need to make money, right? We all need to have a livelihood, to put a roof over our heads, to have clothing, to have food, etc. Not all of us are going to be sadhus and sit on the side of the road and be a yogi and go into the Himalayas. Not all of us are going to do that. So everyone that's watching me and listening to me on a digital platform, I know that you're not in the woods and you're not in a cave in the Himalayas doing sadhana. You are in a modern life practicing your sadhana, right? And so you don't always want to use money in your life as a cop-out for not embracing your spiritual practice and path. This should actually strengthen it. But your focus needs to be reoriented, right? So when you think about money, money should be oriented towards your spiritual path. It should be oriented towards your spiritual growth. That's where our money should be oriented towards. That's the benefit of making money, right? We can continue to explore the depth of our being. And what could be more important than that? That's more important than buying a BMW, for example, right? It's better to spend money on the scriptures, or better to spend money on possibly going to, say, the Himalayas and meditating in a cave, using your money to invest in yourself. What could be more important than that, right? So all of your health and wealth should be geared towards your spiritual growth. And I've heard a lot of spiritual teachers say, if you're really invested in sadhana, don't use life for anything else than this, right? For your spiritual path and practice. And so even your livelihood and the money you save and this and that should be invested into yourself and your spiritual path. That's how I've lived majority of my adult life, to be honest. And that's why I'm here speaking with you. I'm investing in my own spiritual path and my path as a teacher and a student of the great traditions. And so we have to really invest in ourselves and get real about our spiritual sadhana and about our spiritual path and practice. But that brings me back to trust. If you find yourself in a job or you find yourself earning a certain living, you still have to trust your own life path, right? You have to trust your own life path. You have to trust your sadhana. Everything will be taken care of. It might not look like a life that you see of a rich person on Instagram, for example, but who wants a boring life like that? You want a life that is going to give you character. It's going to contextualize your life. It's going to give it flavor, give it vibrance, right? It'll give you a story to tell. It'll give it character. You know, you don't want one of these fake lives on social media where people are portraying a certain character. You need to trust your spiritual path, your sadhana, right? And to do that, to embody trust, you have to embody uncertainty. But that requires you to stop asking questions. Stop looking for answers where there are none. Just trust your path, right? In the Dharmic traditions of India, there are no essential answers. And that's the attitude of manana in Sanskrit, the contemplative mind. You see reality from many different perspectives, and you're not looking for an answer per se, because how could there be a logical conclusion to this majesty of Brahman or Tao, if you will, that we exist in and are? So how could there be actually a logical conclusion to that? There isn't. All you can do is trust your spiritual path and don't have any expectations for your life. Just let it unfold in a beautiful way and trust your life, trust your sadhana, and then you will truly experience ultimate bliss and happiness. And your life will be a perfect reverberation of the ultimate reality of existence. And it will be a bright light in a very dim world. But you have to understand that trust is the paradox of oneness. We cannot understand the ultimate non-dual nature of reality if we don't trust, right? Because when you trust, that is an indication that you understand that you are part of something much greater than yourself. You are not excluding the world and the other. You understand that there is no separation between you and the world around you, because all verily is the ultimate reality of the non-dual Brahman, or Tao, if you will. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.